if you look at the police, Jackie Silibi was already in the pockets of Agliotti and other people. Monkey see, monkey do. If the commissioner could do those kind of things, what about the rest of yeah? So
everyone who is underneath him, as they say, the fish rots from the head.
Yes. So the idea was that we could see some of those things, but at the time they seemed far-fetched. I think because we like politics of spectacle, even from the media, the focus would be JZ and other people that were, when in fact the ANC structures and processes is what enables some of these issues.
So you think that President Ramaphosa should have fired?
Oh, absolutely.
Senzo Mkhunu.
Yes,
but also, I mean, there isn't, and we have talked about this, about how there is no room for a special leave.
No.
In the constitution for a minister. You guys are at this point where there is this momentum. People have voted.
Yes.
People are excited to have something new. People are excited to have a good opposition, black opposition.
Yes.
And then the problem is now an internal one.
Yes.
In terms of which direction do you go towards structurally?
Yes.
Where it's now, where you need an elective conference.
Yes.
That is the normal way to do things.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lemuhang Mujapelu, and welcome to the EFF podcast for this week, and I'm your host today. Today, we have a very special guest in the form of Bazima Shilowa, who is the former trade unionist and politician who was the Secretary General of COSATU and worked as the Premier of Gauteng under the ANC, and then is a co-founder of the political party COPE. We are very happy to have him here to discuss the happenings of the politics in South Africa right now, which is on fire, and also just to get an idea of where we're headed politically as a country. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me.
We are very happy to have you here. We've been having a good string of elderly politicians who are giving us some good insights into what is currently happening in South Africa, giving us some context,
right.
And just learning to understand how we've ended up where we are.
Right.
As you know, the country has been on fire since July this year, when General Mkhwanazi spoke about the infiltration of our intelligence, our judiciary, our policing system, and just kind of pointing to the ways in which our state is under collapse, which I think a lot of people have seen for a long time through the extravagant, the stealing, the extravagant lifestyles, the things happening such as Tembisa Hospital, and we saw it during COVID as well, where COVID funds were stolen. So it has been very clear that government is under attack. And I think what Mkhwanazi did and exposed was that this is something that has been happening for a long time. And it has come to a critical point in our country. And it's a wonder, though, when I would like to ask you then, you have been in governance for a long time. You've been in governance since 1994. And so before then, you were engaged in fighting apartheid. And you left the ANC at some point in 2008 and moved on, obviously, but we won't go there yet. At that point at which you left the ANC, were there signs that our state and our government was under attack in the way that has been exposed right now?
Yes, I think that, growing up, my old man would always say, if I say to you, there's trouble on the other side of the mountain, don't seek to wait until you get to the top of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go down, you see that. So yes, there were a number of us who looked at the trajectory that the ANC was taking, not personalities, because I think people tend to look at personalities in government at the time or in the ANC. But it was more that for some of us, it did not look like the promise of 1994 was still on track. And the promise of 94 is not just about political power, economic power, was also about how do you ensure you've got ethical leadership, moral upright, integrity, in which the resources of the state are used to assist the people rather than to line individual people's pockets. So we were not yet where we are now, but the journey had already started in that process. So that's why it's not surprising now that all of what is being said, we act as if we are surprised. But generally, everybody knows. If you want to ensure that you can steal with impunity, when there are institutions, you collapse them, you weaken them. So for me, it's not so much whether the Scorpions were effective or not, but it was about the fact that that institution was beginning to focus not just on people outside of government, but including political leadership. So what do? You remove them because you want to be able to change. You weaken the judiciary in terms of who you bring in as ministers. And I think there's some telling quotations by former Deputy Justice Moseneke, when he talks about the various ministers of justice that he worked under. When he comes to Jeff Radebe, he says the less said, the better. And I just hope that he will find time to reflect on his tenure. That, for me, is a very pregnant statement. If you look at the police, and that's what I mean when I say the rot was already there. If you look at the police, Jackie Silibi was already in the pockets of Agliotti and other people. Monkey see, monkey do. If the commissioner could do those kind of things, what about the rest of the
rest of
yeah? So
everyone who is underneath him, as they say, the fish rots from the head.
Yes. So the idea was that we could see some of those things, but at the time they seemed far-fetched, and I think now they have come to pass.
Or they seemed like individual cases.
Yes.
In a way that you didn't realize that it was systematic in a way.
Yes, but also that I think because we like politics of spectacle, even from the media, the focus would be JZ and other people that were, when in fact, the ANC structures and processes is what enables some of these issues.
Okay, so when does this begin to become apparent for you within the ANC that, obviously there's factional battles, there is the use of state intelligence systems to fight inner battles and to create, to interfere with the structures within the ANC. When do you begin to realize that something is actually wrong within the ANC?
Yeah, around 2005, I wrote an article about some of the discussions that we're now having about renewal and all of those. Because in 2002, there had been a discussion about developing a new cadre. But the idea of developing a new cadre seemed like it's about those who are up and coming. It is assumed that those who have been there, exile, underground, trade unions, Communist Party, they are grounded. When in fact, even there it is not. But also when you look in terms of the kind of things we do in government, projects that could take 2 to 3 years suddenly take 5 years. Some of them can't get completed because money is siphoned. But like I'm saying, at the time, it is not in a big scale. So by 2008, I had in fact, it's funny because even before I resigned, on my 50th birthday, which was in April 2008, I said, well, at the end of this year, I may resign. To do what? I know, just really to start the travel and all of that. In fact, COPE, when its formation, cut short my trajectory
to retirement
of what I was going to do. Obviously, it's not retirement, as in it's just from party politics.
Yes, indeed.
That politics you can never retire from. So so at the time when the Nicholson judgment came out, because people always say, no, you left because of JZ. No, it's wrong. JZ was the president in 2007. I was the premier until September. But when the Nicholson judgment came out, the issue was not whether the judgment was right or wrong. It's how, even in the phase where you can see it is wrong, you think, let's use it just to make changes into government.
Yes.
And I made the same point then that I made when JZ was going to leave, that he was elected in parliament. If you want to remove the person, go to parliament, even if it is not a motion of no confidence, but ensure that, in future, everyone knows that you have to respect the authority of parliament.
So this is in relation to the removal of Mbeki.
Yes. But I'm saying it's the same.
The recalling, yes. And the same thing that happened to Zuma.
Yes.
That it now sets a horrible precedent around how you can just recall leaders when they're actually presidents, and you are saying that it should be the National Assembly that.
Yes, because you are the president of the country at that time. And you are not being removed. Zuma, it may be slightly different, even though my point still says. You are not being removed because you've done something wrong in parliament.
No.
Where you have followed due process. It is internal battles in the party. You then make institutions, members of parliament, become factional. So that's why you find from, not that there were no factions. I mean, there were factions from around 2005, even in the ANC. But some of them, you see them more as we go, including up to now. Leadership is elected, but it's less about capacity. It's more about which faction and slate do you align with.
Which then obviously compromises the ability to govern and the capacity to do the work. And also, I think, especially like legislative work that needs committed, dedicated people, and they're not being elected based on that capacity, which compromises us.
Yes, but also you calculate what position you make as the president. So if you take the situation of Mkuno, I've got no doubt that if he was not, quote unquote, on the side of the president would have acted. But because he's on his side, it takes a lot of time in terms of, because it does not mean you say he's guilty. You say to the guy, look, this, what is allegations being made, they seem too damning. Go home, sort yourself out.
Yes.
If you are cleared, I may consider you, he is not owed a position in government.
No.
He's not owed a position in government.
You think that President Ramaphosa should have fired?
Oh, absolutely.
Senzo Mkuno.
Yes, no.
But also, I mean, there isn't, and we have talked about this, about how there is no room for a special leave.
No.
In the constitution for a minister.
No.
It's either he's employed or not employed.
Yes.
And now you have brought in another minister at the same time as another minister on special leave. So this, you are saying that this is simply because Nkunu is part of the Ramaphosa's faction.
I think so. Because the point that I wrote an article in which I said, when the panel in Parliament made its recommendation to Parliament, it didn't say Cyril was guilty.
This is the Section 89
yes.
on Pala.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the Noble panel did not say Ramaphosa is guilty. It said he's got a case to answer.
Yes, there is prima facie evidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we know that he accepted that if I've got a case to answer, let me resign. Let me sort out my things. But those on his side who felt if he's gone, we don't have anybody else, we don't have cover, would have prevailed on him to stay. But you take Nene. Nene was not accused of any corruption by anybody. He simply said, look, there was an oversight in myself. I didn't indicate that I had met with the Guptas under this. I didn't give them any idea. But because I did not declare this, I'm stepping down. Senzo could have done the same thing. And ironically, we should thank him, though, for not resigning.
Why should we thank him?
If he had resigned, the president would simply have said to the police, please go in, investigate all of those things. You would have a lot of cover-up.
Yes,
we thank him now because he didn't resign. The Madlanga Commission is in place, and you can see the skeleton coming out, tumbling in that sense. So it's an irony.
It's an irony that the thing that he thought he was protecting himself is the thing that actually is uncovering more.
But also it means you have a situation in which, because remember, he is an ANC minister. People associate whatever he had done to say, this is what it means to be beholden to people with money.
Yes.
Be they criminals or be they just business people. It's those kind of things, so yeah.
It is. And it seems, the deterioration that continues where ministers of police, commissioners of police people just being, like you say, beholden to criminality, to criminals.
Yes.
Like to drug lords and to mafias and to... As the fact they are moving along together as if they are one, and they've created a system as one. It's terrifying to think that people that are selected as leaders of the people find it so easy to align themselves with such criminality. Even we see it even with Sibia, where they are the center of the crime. They are the ones pushing the crime within our own country.
Yes.
And then for some reason, we're expected to think that there is any kind of safety for the ordinary person in this country.
And the head of Hawks as well, is involved in this situation in which it is clear it is to protect someone that you send multiple of teams, to there. But I think the issue at the moment, which is a plus, even though it's a problem for the country, is that the mirror is not being put by political parties. If all of these things were being said in Parliament, it will be seen as point scoring.
Yes.
That it is coming out in this kind of situation, one hopes that we don't look at the mirror, say we don't like what we see in the mirror, then crash the mirror. But rather we're going to say, let's sit down. What real changes do we want to be able to make? Not just politically, but it's more about how do we ensure people are held accountable? What institutions? I hope that not just the Madlanga, but also the ad hoc committee will also come with recommendations of what could really be done to ensure that we don't find ourselves in this situation. One of the things that the Italians did, because I think there was a time when Italy was as rotten.
Mm-hmm.
It does not mean that they are not rotten, but at that time, you had really the mafia working,
Yes.
known judges, police, and all of that.
In every government department,
Yes.
every section of the country.
Part of what they did was to identify what for them were police, prosecutors, and judges would insulate those and say all cases involving these people, that's where they are going to be. Mm-hmm. And that's when you were able to at least bring out most of the rot that would have been there, So, and I'm hoping that even here, we're going to look at something like that. We're going to look at, sure, we don't want to take the preserve of the president to appoint, say, police commissioner. Mm-hmm. But surely, you may want to learn from the U.S. Mm-hmm. I know the U.S. is terrible in terms of the thing, but if there's one thing they do very well, even though it's still partisan, is that whether it's a minister, whether it's an ambassador, whether it's a chief of police or of the FBI, they will be interviewed.
Yes.
In the legislature.
Yes, by every member of the
member. Yeah. And if there are issues, some of the things that are coming out now, we would have known, and all of those. So I'm saying that I'm hoping that both from Madlanga and from the ad hoc committee, hopefully we'll learn something.
Something even about the recruitment process.
Yes.
That can be more transparent and in-depth as opposed to just mere appointments.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's very understandable because, I mean, we do need something different to change. So do you think there is hope that these things can be uprooted similarly to what you're speaking about is in Italy?
I think the day we think there is no hope, then we shouldn't be citizens in a country.
That is true.
We've got to always work on the basis that there is hope. And I think there is hope, one, because, I think whatever the politics, I have got trust in the broader populace, that the population will also be able to come to a time where they say, thus far and no more. And that therefore, those in authority, be they political parties, be they in government, it's important that they become afraid of that day, ensure that it never comes. So I'm hoping that with the kind of powers that Madlanga has been given, he'll make those. But I'm also hoping that in the same way that some of the things around Transnet, around ESCOM, came out during the other hearings earlier on towards the Zuma era.
Yes.
We were able to make some changes. The problem is not making changes. It's not being able to follow up. Because it's one thing to agree on changes, and then you don't follow them up, and then we revert back to where we are. The other thing that I hope we must deal with is ability of people to act with impunity.
Definitely.
That is part of the problem. So you talk about the Tembisa hospital. It is not so much what happened there. Is that to date, notwithstanding some of the information that is available, some of which journalists report about, some of which even people who are working there have been reporting about, no one has been held accountable. You need to change that situation. What you need to know when the system works is that, if I steal, I will be arrested.
Yes.
I'll be found out. If found out, I'll be arrested. I'll be prosecuted. I'll be sent to jail. If those things then become in place, then you will make changes.
Then you make changes. People will think about these things before they do them because there are direct consequences.
Yes.
For
It doesn't mean it won't happen, but it means at least you have a sense that something will be done.
that justice will be served.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back a little bit. To you are part of the ANC. You work as the premier of Gauteng, and you resign in 2008.
2008.
You resigned to go and set up a new political party.
Yes.
With Terra Likota.
Yes.
I want you to take me back to the moment that this idea comes. What discussions do you have and with whom? And what moves you to push in this direction of forming a new political party out of the ANC?
I think around April, May 2008, around July, there are a number of people inside the ANC. Some of them leaders in provinces. Some are chairpersons, some are secretaries. They think, it's time to make a change. But the idea which didn't get implemented because for various other reasons, which, are subject of another
another conversation.
But the idea was in the Eastern Cape, in Mpumalanga, in Northwest, you would be able to do more or less the same thing that MK would have done. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much everybody resigns. It's you move en masse, you remain ANC, but you're working underground, and then you launch when the time is proper.
Okay.
But then some people get cold feet, and
so it was going to be like an inner coup.
It was going to be like an inner coup, but
within the ANC.
Within the ANC, not at the NEC level,
but on the provincial
yes.
and local level.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, so like everything else, we all calculate.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I say to people, I resigned. Terra didn't resign. There was a threat of his expulsion and going to the DC, which was going to be held. So a day before the convention, he resigned. Same with Mluleki. Same with Smarts and others, because they were then going to be seen in the convention. You could not explain in terms of that.
Exactly.
So it's the same. So you find that Silo Moloto is the premier, is the chair. He thinks, if I leave, what happens? So when does he leave? A week before you finalize your list for 2009. Mm-hmm. Part of that process then means that later when people look at it, they say, no, but they are favored people and all of that. We resigned our positions. We went out to look at all of those. But now when you start working on the list, so it's like, I don't know if you know Sotho, but they speak about Bumabuna Kutsul. So it's like for some people, they think, no, but how can you do that? Bloom was a spokesperson for the ANC on correctional services. He get asked, are you going to leave by the media? He says, no, I'm not going to leave. 2 days later, because we're now finalizing the list, he then resigns and he's onto the list.
Yes.
So it's part of those things in which, because people become calculative, then you have few people that go out, and then obviously you work from there, which has got its own advantages in that you start afresh. It has got its own disadvantages in that because we all from the ANC, cultures and everything else, you don't break with them. So if there were factions in the ANC, you also...
They are going to show up immediately in the new organization.
They're going to show up immediately in the new organization. But the issue of starting out, working out the issues, I think resonated with the majority of people, which is why, in the elections, 37 members, went into...
Yeah, you got
into
37
parliament.
seats in parliament.
37 seats in parliament. Official opposition in 5 provinces, represented in all provinces and all of those. Obviously not too much good in Mpumalanga because there was one person, and also in KZN, one person. But the rest, they were...
But I mean, it was a big political moment. It was a phenomenon. It was my first time voting in 2009.
Yeah.
And I gave my first vote to Cobe at the time. And I think I would distinctly remember, especially because at the time, Zuma had been on trial for rape.
Yes.
The story was not good. He had already been implicated in the arms deal.
Yes.
There was already so much happening. And I think the tide was turning to against the ANC's.
Yes.
But also, I think people had this desire not to go the way that other liberation movements had gone on the African continent.
Which answer question you haven't asked, but which always emerges. Which is why it's a disappointment that things did not work out the way they were supposed to be. And I think that killed hopes of many people.
Yes.
It also makes it difficult for new parties coming up because people say, well, we tried it with COPE, it didn't work, and all of those, Yet, I think it's important for people to be able to say, it was not the idea that was the problem. I always say to people, the problem was the whole issue of, do you have an elective conference, messy as it is, or do you just continue like it is a monarchy?
So you guys are at this point where there is this momentum. People have voted.
Yes.
People are excited to have something new. People are excited to have a good opposition, black opposition.
Yes.
And then the problem is now an internal one.
Yes.
In terms of which direction do you go towards structurally?
Yes.
Where you need an elective conference.
Yes.
That is the normal way to do things.
Yes. So you take the eye off the ball from the voter that put you in parliament. You focus internally. So your constitution says after 18 to 24 months, you should have an elective conference. But when the elective conference arrives a week before, you realize the numbers are not numbering. So you collapse the conference, which is what happened in 2010. And then between 2010...
So who are we referring to here as collapsing?
In terms of COPE.
Yeah. So who collapsed the conference?
Well, Terra and some of the people that were working with them.
Because they did not feel like they had enough numbers to maintain those positions that they had.
Yes. And our view was that these positions were never permanent. It's the same in the EFF. You come here, you say, look, we're going to set up an interim structure. Doesn't matter what you call it. Even if you're going to go to a conference 2 years later, it's an interim structure.
Yes.
Thereafter, let democracy take its way.
Definitely.
Democracy is messy, it's noisy, but if you embrace it, this is the one thing you've got to give to the ANC, you've got to give to the EFF, is that you say, it will expose us. We may even rapture going to the conference, but we need to fulfill that thing.
Indeed.
And then see how we work out thereafter.
Because it maintains the trust of the people.
Instead of saying, like MKP says, we're not going to go into an elective congress. So that's part of what I think we're not able to do. What killed the momentum was not all of those other things. In Parliament, you could do a lot of work. There were people here in the province who were doing a lot of very good work. It was that you become internally focused. And internally focused, that do kill organizations, because you are in Parliament. People want to see, as the ANC, EFF, whoever, what is your offering on each and every issue? We have high unemployment. We have poverty. We have got low growth. Not slogans that we make during elections. In Parliament, when you stand up, what is it that you say that will be able to say, yes, we've got political power. We said we'll use it to ensure social and economic transformation. How are we dealing with those kind of issues?
Did you guys get to a point where you set those policies up and began to move certain things in Parliament? Did you get to that point?
Yes. And in fact, in 2010, in May, what was going to be the conference became a policy conference.
Yes.
So a set of policies would have been agreed to. They would have been followed up.
Yes, indeed. That is as it happens.
But you can't follow them, because when you arrive in Parliament, in the caucus, you are at each other's throats. So you don't sit as a caucus and say, next week, I'm in this portfolio committee. These are the key issues that are coming up. What do we say as the caucus to empower those kind of people? It's more about, no, but what is happening here is not right. What about the resources? What about my secretary? What about my computer?
Oh my, and that is incredibly dangerous. That is incredibly dangerous, because you have not fixed the thing that made you leave.
Yes.
The other thing that you said was broken.
Yes, but also the people out there, they see the same thing. So they say, by a fan.
Yes.
So
you have this, and then you leave in 2011. 2011. You resign and you say, I'm done with this. And you also leave party politics at the same time.
Yes.
But then COPE continues.
Yes.
And they enter the next election.
Yes.
Which is 2014.
Yes.
And they only get a few seats.
Yeah, about 4.
4 seats.
Yes, to be precise.
How does this feel? How does it like to build something, start with so much momentum, and then within such a short space of time, it's gone?
It feels bad. And I talked to some of the people who were with in COPE, and I say to them, no one should feel vindicated that it collapsed. In fact, it's important that those who are still there in COPE, they need to be able to sit down and publicly say to the people, not this one was right, that one was wrong, but publicly say to the people, we took our eye off the ball.
Yes.
We focused on ourselves. We currently don't even have a single seat in the National Assembly. If we are going to continue, this is what we're going to change. These are the policy offerings we're going to be able to have. But the first thing you've got to do is to show contrition. You've got to say to the people, you can't go and try to explain to them what went wrong. You've got to be able to say collectively, look, we messed up. We still believe in this. This is how it's going to move forward. Without that, it will continue to die.
I think so. I think a lot of us have forgotten about it, even though we were hopeful for a second. But it was an essential part of keeping opposition politics alive in South Africa. It was an essential part of reminding the ANC that it's not yours. It doesn't really not belong to you.
Absolutely.
It's still about the people, and the people can change their minds at any point in time.
Yes.
So I think that perhaps that is why people feel like that about it, to be like, oh, why did it have to happen that way?
Yes, no, absolutely.
But I think you also know that I think it was very informative for a lot of other opposition parties to come up and challenge the ANC.
Indeed.
And, say, no, we're going to keep the spirit of opposition.
But also to say, how do we avoid some of these pitfalls?
Indeed.
And I'm saying one of it is to say, let democracy. It doesn't matter whether people think it's manipulated and all of that. Sometimes it's messy, but it's important to keep that democratic spirit. If you can't do internal democracy, there's no way in which you can do democracy overall. And
it's happening a lot. It's happening a lot with a lot of young parties that are just refusing to set up these kinds of structures. And
NGNSA is now going beyond 5 years.
And there's nothing.
No. They've got no intention. They've got an explanation why they can't have an election. And I think that makes people think maybe it's a monarchy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a monarchy, but I mean, that's what makes people think like that.
Mm-hmm.
If MKP were saying, look, we'll go to an election in 2 years, you can't say it's a monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
When they say we've got no intention of holding an election in the near future, let alone how decisions get taken.
People are fired and put in, and statements are released in the middle of the night. Who's fired? Who isn't? In fact, I wonder how people at MKP sleep, because you can wake up in a position and tomorrow you're no longer in that position, which is why democracy is crucial, because if you're elected democratically by the people of that organization, your job is simply to serve, not to worry about keeping that position.
But also, it makes you get internally focused.
Exactly.
Instead of being more broadly. So, I mean, one hopes that, as we go forward, political parties embrace, first and foremost, internal democracy. Because if you embrace internal democracy, you will embrace broad overall democracy. You will accept that the masses are always right. Look, I know that masses can hold the reactionary positions, but you've got to say the masses are never wrong. We have not taken them along with, and therefore what can we be to take them along in that direction? Yes.
So in line with that, right? If we're going to go back into your own history, as a trade unionist, as part of the South African Communist Party and the ANC, during the CODESA.
Yes.
You say the Indians told me there's CODESA 1, there's CODESA 2.
Yeah.
I needed that historical reminder. You were part of CODESA 1. With the ANC.
Yes.
And then there is a time where it's suspended, there's no agreement, and then they come back a second time to negotiate again, and you're part of the South African Communist Party.
Yes.
But you're also representing COSATU, and you say COSATU had a set of ideas around what they wanted at the negotiating table.
Yes.
So a few weeks ago here, we had Comrade Ronald Castles.
Yes.
And obviously one of the questions that I think is always burning, and I think it's a subject a lot of people talk about, where they feel like those negotiations were a compromise and that perhaps the people were betrayed by the negotiating parties at that time. What Comrade Ronnie accedes to in his own analysis of having been a part of it, in his own way, is that they prioritized political power.
Right.
With the intent that political power was what was going to then bring about economic power and economic freedom for the majority in this country. I wonder what was COSATU gunning for?
Right.
And what did they get and what didn't they get? And what made it difficult?
Yeah. To look at all of those things, it's difficult in a short space of time.
Yes, of
like
course.
This. But you've got to look at the ANC, even at the height of the armed struggle of sanctions. it always said that if the opportunity arrives for us to sit down and negotiate, because we took up arms because the regime was not willing to negotiate. If that moment arrives, we should be able to embrace it. But you don't just go into negotiations, which is why over time, having seen what happens in Lancaster for Zimbabwe, what happened at the UN in terms of Resolution 435 in the UN for Namibia, the ANC through Tambo started saying, let's ask ourselves the question, if we're going to negotiate, what will be our constitutional principles? So ANC adopts those, they work with everybody internally, and then those are taken to the OAU. That's how it becomes the Harare Declaration, first as in SADC.
Yes.
So it says these are the kind of things we want to do. The key thing, the demand is to say cessation of hostilities, allow for a constituent assembly that will then draft the constitution. Because then you say it must be sovereign. But then when you negotiate, the issue of how do you arrive at a constituent assembly becomes an issue. You need to have an election that will bring together a constituent assembly, which should have unfettered rights except for the constitutional principles to draft the constitution.
Yes.
Which is what the 1993 interim constitution is all about. It has got a lot of suspensive clauses. People say our biggest problem is the sunset clauses. The sunset clauses fell in 1999. There's not a single sunset clause, but we still use some of those excuses to be able to deal with it. So it was correct to say, let's use this as a bridge. Have an election, have a constituent assembly, draft a constitution. You are in government.
That the political was indeed the priority.
Yes.
In order for any kind of system to be set up.
Yes.
In order for anything else to happen.
Yes. But when we arrive in parliament, we settle.
Okay.
We settle down. We settle to routine.
Mm-hmm.
The constitution becomes the priority thing, which is correct. But beyond that, we don't say the promise of 94 was not just the constitution, the flag, the national color, the symbols.
Yes,
it was
the national anthem.
Yes, it was also about social and economic issues.
Yes.
What do we make those? So from a COSATU point of view, and I say to people publicly that at least for workers, the political dividends are there. I know when people are angry, they say, look, nothing happened. We worked with Tito Mboweni, came in 1994. By 95, we had the Labor Relations Act. Then you had the Skills Development Act, a Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and so forth and so forth. What we lost during the negotiations, because I'm cutting a long story short, is that we're in negotiations, but by 93, I'm the General Secretary, and we decide, look, because I'm the General Secretary, I can't also be there with the ANC and the Communist Party. But we sit down and we do a set of demands around worker rights, around worker issues that we think should be in the Constitution. But we also look at what we call, people look at the Constitution horizontally. We said you must also look at it vertically. And therefore, one of the things that we said must be dealt with is Section 25.
Yes.
Which is where I come in terms of, and I think I said to you when we're discussing that, I think there's a lot of revisionism.
Mm-hmm.
We lost as COSATU. There are documents that will show we were the only party, we were the only organization
that was unhappy with Section 25.
That pushed to the last day. We're able to get the rest of the things, worker rights, lockout clause, the right to strike.
So,
But
so when you were saying you were fighting for land expropriation.
we were talking with Escosato, we were saying we are workers, but we also were part of the people who were removed from all of those. We understood that the struggle was not just about gumboots and all of that.
Yes.
It was also about social and economic. And we were saying this clause, the problem is not the clause, is the intention. We said, don't insert in the Constitution this property clause. Canada doesn't have it. There are a number of countries that we indicated, I think Australia or New Zealand doesn't have it. We said it's not that you should not have it. Put it in legislation.
Yeah.
Because we know why you want it. You want it because there's this notion that we want to take Tani's
that we're just going to grab everyone's everything.
Yes. And we were saying, no, Africans who have property now are not going to suddenly say the government must take them. So we understand that you can't take from Tani so-and-so and leave from Umnumzad. But do it in the legislation.
Yes.
Don't put it in the Constitution. But secondly, accepting that we lost. The problem is not only that we lost, it's also that when the opportunity came to use it, because you had Albisex, is now sitting in the Constitutional Court. He was part of the drafting. He understood it the same way that, well, it will not hinder. You had Museneke.
Yes, that they were certain that this thing is not going to hinder us from doing what we need to do.
So you had Museneke. He was in the drafting committee. Albisex. You had Arthur Chaskerson. Instead of taking these issues to court, in the Constitutional Court, so that it can rule and make certainty, we don't. We devise a new scheme of willing buyer,
willing seller.
I know that JZ says, no, he is radical and all of that. In fact, the biggest land sale paid by the state to an individual was under his 1 billion for Malamala.
1 billion.
Yes. 1 billion. 1 billion. You can go and check it.
Wow.
So that's what you need to take into account.
This is, and I think it's one of the biggest disappointments, I think, of our country and for people, that there was no land redistribution program.
Yes.
At least not an effective one.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you say that the very people who had said and sat and drafted this Section 25,
yes,
saying that it would not hinder the progress,
yes,
or of land redistribution,
yes,
are the same people who effectively did not push and actually implement a system in which land redistribution could take place, yes, despite Section 25.
And when they were being challenged to say, yes, Section 25 is the hindrance, they didn't go to the Constitutional Court
and say, no.
Arthur was one of the drafters. Albisex was one of the drafters. Museneke was one of the drafters. There's no way in which they would have reneged and all of that. We wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't.
But it's not under the bridge.
But at the same time, the ANC itself, despite having a majority, did not push for land redistribution. Despite, even when they were no longer a majority and the EFF entered, they said, we'll give you the votes. Let's do something about the land. They didn't. And then the fact that you're saying the biggest sale happened under Jacob Zuma. So is it a deliberate refusal to change the status quo?
I don't think it's a refusal. I think it's an outlook that sees land as in out there in the rural areas, rather than land for both farming, but also land in urban centers for development. We continue with the apartheid special development. when in fact we're building further and further away. Why? Because land is cheaper. And I mean, ours premier, I know that. We said we'll put something, there by Marlborough.
Yep.
We said we'll put something there in Marlborough by the Jackskay. You can go and look at the plans. They are all there. It's owned by Wits University. The amount of money they want for that makes it difficult to develop the area. And there are many such pockets. So you don't just need land for farming in the rural areas. You also need it for social and economic development in this area. And finally, the funny thing though, we do use the law and expropriation for roads,
yes,
and for rail lines, but we don't want to use it. At least, well, I hope now we'll be able to use it in terms of what we have, but we must not confuse the Expropriation Act without compensation with land restitution and land reform. The two are not the same, and I think we tend to
conflate them. I mean, there are ways in which obviously they would be connected.
Yes.
But what South Africa needs is an equitable land distribution program.
Yes.
In which, like you said, it's about everyone having access to a space to live with dignity and with flexibility.
Yes.
As well as obviously when we talk about farming or, that's a necessary thing for farming land not to be concentrated into the hands of a minority.
Yes.
Just to maybe round up, okay, we will speak a bit about, you've seen, you were former premier of Gauteng.
Yes.
And they recently, obviously, you've seen Helen Zille is fighting here to contest as mayor of Johannesburg.
Yes.
And I'm not sure. I'm a bit scared of that people in Johannesburg might vote for her because Johannesburg is not looking well. Right. We saw them recently in the past few weeks running around because G20 was coming. All of a sudden, we remember that we can have clean roads and we can have working robots and working systems. What do you think about Helen as a candidate for mayor of Joburg?
Well, my view is that, each party will try to put what it believes is its own best candidate. The issue for me is not what we think of Helen's candidature. It's to be able to accept that no individual, no matter how powerful, will change our situation in here. We've got to ask the question. We must ask whether it's the ANC, whether it's the EFF and all of that. Yes, we want to know who your candidate is going to be. But this is what we're interested in. We know the budget of Joburg is so much. Currently, this is how it's being spent. You say you will make a difference. Where are you going to take from Paul to give to Peter and all of those? And I think, again, if you can do that, it does not matter that the middle class and others sometimes fall for sound bites. You will find that they may not. I don't think that the DA will get a majority. I don't think a single party will get a majority. Yeah. But I think the response should be less about, no, they can't bring Helen. They can bring anybody they want. They could even bring God if they wanted. That's not the problem. The issue is, what is the response? What is the program?
What is the program? I suppose people are worried that the program will be similar to Cape Town. And that there will be deepened inequality and a lack of services for certain demographics. Yeah, so I think that is the fear.
But the middle class,
Cape Town,
the middle class prefers that Cape Town model because bugger the poor.
Yes, of course.
As long as where I am.
The way I am is fine.
Yes,
Yes, that is
So,
worrying.
so I think for me, it's that's what you need to do. It's important that all the parties, maybe what it will do is to ensure that the EFF doesn't just say, "Ubani," that we don't need at the national level and all of that. Please go in there. You're more likely to be able to say, this is the best candidate we have, who, if we were to be part of the leadership or be of government, this is what we'll be able to do. Hopefully the ANC will do the same
That is,
thing.
it's going to liven up the competition, and
Yes.
people are going to put their best man forward.
I saw an article that says I'm being considered as a candidate.
Or are you serious?
Yes, I saw it, but it is not true.
You're saying you saw an article, so I was about to be like,
Yes,
who are you running with?
I did. I saw that.
So is your time in politics over? Are we going to ever see you again?
No.
No.
Well, not in politics, in party politics.
In party politics?
In party politics. Politics, you can't leave. Politics, so for me, politics is like, for instance, ANC or yourself says, look, we want to discuss what are the key challenges we're facing, what policy changes we can make. I can't say, no, I can't go. Because I'm not in party politics, it's easy for me to engage with everybody, in that sense. So politics are important because even when I go to Limpopo, people don't care that I'm not in party politics. When I'm there, they want to know what is happening to our country. What do you think? And I can't say to them, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you are here, so you are in politics.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us and the insight and reflecting with us and speaking to us on this platform. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for the invite.
Please continue to enjoy being a man of leisure.
Indeed.
And we'll touch base in politics as we go along.
From time to time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.